Hello, everyone. You know, if you would have told me before I read today's book that there would be a book about lighthouses and lighthouse keepers that would stay with me and haunt me and make me feel unsettled inside, I would have told you you were foolish, that you were losing the plot, that you were well on your way to expensive therapy bills. And yet, here we are. And all of that was true. Let's talk about all that right now. The book we're going to be talking about today is The Lamplighters by Emma Stonex. This is going to be a hard book to describe. Because going in, I didn't know anything about lighthouses. I didn't know anything about the ocean or the sea or the men who in the past had to manually run those lighthouses. And to be honest, I didn't care one way or the other. I didn't hate lighthouses. But if somebody were to say, what were your thoughts on lighthouses? I would just be like, well, they look pretty in pictures with the water splashing up the sides, things like that. That's the only thing I knew about lighthouses. But now I feel completely different, because despite the fact that I knew nothing about them, I didn't care to learn anything about them, I was reading this book and was fully intrigued from the very, very beginning. And there's a reason for that. It's just like when you eat somebody's food, and it might not be a food you typically like, but when you taste it, it just explodes in your mouth and your mind is blown by it. And they say the secret ingredient is love. And you can tell from reading this book that the author has put a lot of research into the subject matter of this book. And not just for the technical little pieces that go together to make it realistic, but you can tell that she has a real knowledge and love for this subject. And it shows through in the words, in her prose. And you will just, I love a book that I can take that can take a subject that I don't normally care about or maybe not interested in, and then just change my mind. It's fantastic when that happens. It's almost like a little piece of magic. And that's what I feel this book is. Now, the story itself is fictional, but it is based on a real incident about these lighthouse keepers that used to manually turn the lights on in the lighthouses. And there was a particular incident where their relief came so they could go back to shore, and all the men were gone with nothing out of place in the lighthouse. No distress signal being sent. They just disappeared and vanished off the face of the earth. And so even though this book is fictional and the telling of a tale like this is fictional, it's based on something that has actually happened. And it concerns 3 men, and they all disappear one day from their lighthouse. And nobody knows why. And 20 years later, on the anniversary of that disappearance, an author decides he wants to write a book about the incident. And so he goes back and he's trying to find people who were around these men at the time, their family, their widows that were left behind. And even the author, even the man who's writing the book, is kind of a mystery. One thing you're going to love about this book, at least I did, it's a literary work, but it's not so lofty you can't understand it. But it's just so beautifully written. And the prose is almost poetic as the story is being told, that it draws you in. It gives you a sense of comfort. It's like comfort food for your soul is how this writing is. But the author, one thing I like is that we know about the author and what he's going to do, but he never speaks until the end of the book. We never hear his voice in conversations with these people. We hear from them and what they're saying to the author, but we never hear him interrupting. We don't hear him asking the questions. And we get all our information from the tales of the widows of these men that had disappeared and from their perspective. In addition, we also get to hear from the men who disappeared and their time spent in this lighthouse. It's a very grueling job. It's a very lonely job. It's a job that not very many men can handle. You're in a very claustrophobic, cramped space with, just 3 men. Those are the only people you're going to see for 8 weeks at a time. They're there 8 weeks, and they get 4 weeks off, then have to go right back out. And this book changes perspectives from one widow to the other widow to the next, from one man to another man to the next. And this makes up the main narrative of this story. And this is where the meat of the book actually is. There is a supernatural event that you'll find out about later in the book. But to say that this is a psychological horror wouldn't be doing it justice. In my opinion, it's a literary book told with a supernatural element to it. But that doesn't mean it's not frightening, it's not unsettling, and it's not disturbing. Because we find out from the widows, we find out from the men themselves that they each to the man and to the woman, they each have secrets. They each are suffering the grief in their own way. They've all suffered loss in their own way. The men are all different. One is a young man. He's running from a life of crime. He's been in prison before. He's trying to change his ways for the love of his life. Another man, he doesn't have much affection for the sea or this lifestyle. It was forced upon him at a young age. It's a family tradition for them to have this job, and he has no say in the matter, and he's kind of resentful of that fact. And then the PK, or the main lightkeeper guy, in their world it would be called a PK, he's just the opposite. He does not feel comfortable being ashore. He thinks it's too complicated. People are too complicated. He loves the loneliness, the solitude, the ritual of what goes on while he's on his watch in the lighthouse. And to him, that lighthouse and the sea around it is like a secret lover he's taken away from his wife. And of course she knows this, and so she feels neglected by him because she knows she's always going to have to compete with his other love, which is the lighthouse and the sea. And he just doesn't feel comfortable on land. But these are just some of the characters in the story, and some of the secrets they're going to reveal tells a narrative. And in this narrative, it's entirely possible at any time you're reading this book to think you know what happened. Each man has a reason based on secrets that sometimes other people aren't aware that they know about. As the rumors fly about what happened to these men, some people think it was aliens, some people think it was just a big wave that swept them all off at once. Other people think they all escaped in a secret boat and went to some Caribbean island. As all the rumors for this kind of thing will happen. We learned that it could have been possible that one or more of these men were responsible for what happened to the others. And maybe they did escape, and maybe they were kidnapped. Maybe their bodies are buried at sea. Any number of things could have happened. But all of this is told in a hypnotizing, very magnetic way. Like I said, it feels like an old blanket wrapped around you on a cold winter's night, or an old pair of slippers that you put on. It's like I said, this book is hard to talk about, but it's comforting, but also as the events unfold and we see different aspects of people's past and their feelings toward one another and toward their family and toward their job and toward this lifestyle, it's also very unsettling, and it's also very disturbing, because sometimes the best horror is not of a creature or bloodshed or anything like that. It's the secrets that people keep. We all have secrets that we don't want to reveal to anybody else, but these secrets can sometimes get out of our control and out of our hands, and it might have an effect where it causes things to happen to those around us that we might not even be aware of. And I think that's really the crux of this book, is the story of these people going through this time, recounting 20 years earlier what had happened. And we go back and forth in time. We get to hear different tales from everybody involved about what happened, what secrets they hold, how this could have eventually affected the disappearance of these men. And it's like a whodunit wrapped up in a mystery filled with secrets, with a supernatural twist at the end as we find out exactly what happened. And like I said, it's just a fantastic, great book. I can't say enough good things about it. It's probably one of my favorite books I've read so far this year. And like I said, whether you care about lighthouses or not, or the job that it involves, you can't help but be fascinated by this story, because it's written in such a way that it draws you in, and you think about it long, long after you've read the book. It's very haunting. It's sad at times. It'll make you feel melancholy at times. But it's a great book, and I highly, highly recommend that you read this book. And I will leave a link down below to the page on Amazon where you can purchase it if you want to. Do that right now. And also leave a link down below to Twitter if you want to join me on there, and my email if you want to say anything, or you can leave a comment. And as always, I want to thank you for taking a little bit of your time spending it with me. I really appreciate you guys watching these videos. Stay safe, and until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.